Oh man, that is so good. We have been just sitting here chowing down on these here enchiladas. I cooked up a big batch of enchiladas today, and I think it's something that everyone should try. These are kind of tender. They're kind of hard to get out in one piece. There we go. If you'd like to learn how to make real enchiladas, watch this video. You're going to learn how to make the best tasting enchilada that you've ever put in your mouth, bar none. It's going to teach you how to make the sauce, the filling, how to wrap it, bake it, the whole bit. Okay? Watch this and learn how to do it. Well, hello. Welcome back to Texas Cooking. Hey, today we're going to be working on making enchiladas. Enchiladas. So, what I'm started here is some beef. And there's a lot of different ways I could have prepared a beef roast, and a lot of different kinds of beef I can use for this. I just happen to have on hand a eye of the round, or a portion of an eye of the round actually. And what I'm going to do here is test it right quick. I want to find out if that sucker is fork tender or not. I don't think it is. It really hasn't been in there long enough. So check my hand here. Okay, see that meat is real tough. Yeah, the meat's hanging onto the fork. That is not fork tender. So I'm going to keep roasting this for a while. And right now I have it in juices, just a very simple marinade. I'm using some liquid smoke, black pepper, and salt. And you might be saying, oh, liquid smoke. Well, that doesn't sound very Texas to me. Well, you know, sometimes we cheat, alright? Plain and simple. Don't be afraid of using this product. It tastes very, very good. Okay, it's hard to tell the difference between that and actual smoked meat. And pretty much the only way I've ever been able to tell is just by the appearance of the meat, unless it was a poor quality liquid smoke. So try those things out. If I had my choices on the best beef to use for this, I would have chosen a brisket. I didn't have a brisket on hand, so I'm doing it with an eye of the round. Now, I want to be making a sauce also. Let's kind of refocus this a little bit. I'm going to be producing a sauce of several different neat little items. Ancho chili sauce. This is commonly used in Tex-Mex cooking, Texas cooking, and Mexican cooking. And it uses a pepper called the ancho chili. That's this little guy right here. These come in packages dried. This is just a poblano pepper that's dried out. Okay, nothing else. These do make wonderful chili sauce though, the best in the world. And to flavor this, I'm also going to use some garlic, some cumin, some oregano, and a little bit of tomato sauce and some beef broth to thin it down with. I'm going to soak these first, and then after I soak them, I'll run them through a food mill, and we'll show you all of those steps here in just a little bit. So that's going to be the seasoning for both the beef inside of our tamales, as well as the sauce that goes over the top of the tamales. It's going to be sort of a two-part thing. How to make an ancho chili sauce. The reason I'm going to do this is I'm going to make some beef enchiladas. Okay, and I'm going to go through the whole process on this, on how to make the enchiladas also. So, this is also a cooking segment on beef enchiladas. Now, what we're going to do on our ancho chili sauce, I have gone out and purchased a bag of dried ancho chilies. These come in a lot of different brands. Make sure when you purchase your ancho chilies that you go to a store that would have them fresh. I recommend a Hispanic market where a lot of your Hispanics shop. That way you'll know you get these fresh, because they go through a lot of these. You want them to be very quiet when you bend them. Listen. All I hear are the seeds rattling. It's very leathery and soft. So that's a good fresh one. If it was dried and it cracked, then it would be not as such a good choice. It'll still work, but it just isn't as fresh. Now, one of the things I want to do before I soak these, I'm going to take a knife and skewer them, just like that. And the reason I do that is to allow penetration of the water. And I'll do that to each and every one of these. Be careful that you don't stab yourself. I'll fill this with warm water, and I'm going to place a bowl on top to soak these. Now this is a little bit different than the Hispanic method of making an ancho chili sauce. Usually they will cook the chilies and then separate the seeds and stems and the skin from the pulp. I think that's a lot of extra work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little different cooking technique that the French would use. I'm going to use a mill. Now, cooking mill like this one, this is a little plastic one. These don't cost a whole lot. They have a paddle in the bottom that when you turn, it forces food through the small holes of a sieve. Now here's one of the larger ones. You can see the holes on this. This one's a big one. The holes I have in this, much smaller. I want to process a much finer food. If I was making mashed potatoes, this would work great, wouldn't it? Okay, so these things can process a lot of different kinds of food. Now in this case, I just remove a lot of the work. This is going to take out all of the seeds and all of the skin. It'll leave that behind, and it'll give me only pure ancho chili paste, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So, on with making this wonderful sauce. Okay, I've got my water in there with the chilies. Now I used some good hot water for this. I want to separate these chilies out, spread them out, make sure they're all below the surface of the water. These things want to float, okay? So something that can help you with that if yours are floating a lot is just place another bowl right up in there on top of them, and that'll press them down. I've got about 10 chilies in here. Now that's going to make a lot of sauce. I mean a huge batch of sauce. It's going to be enough for me to cover 15 enchiladas and to flavor the meat inside of the enchiladas, and I'll probably have a substantial amount left over afterwards. Okay, so this stuff, so you will know, after I extract the pulp from these chilies, that pulp will absorb water just like a sponge, and it creates a lot more sauce than just what you see at first. Okay, now I'm going to let them soak. That's going to take, I've had this go for as short a period of time as 30 minutes, and I've had it take as long as a couple of hours. So it just seems to be the batch of chilies you get. Good luck on that one. It has been now about 1 hour since I checked this roast the last time. So we're going to check it again. We're once again checking this for fork tender. Look at that little guy. Got a little brown on top. That's nice. That's one of the reasons I went with the glass pan this side and a dark colored one, because it does have a tendency to brown meat real well. See how I stuck my fork in there and it picked it right up? Okay, well that's not fork tender. So, I'm going to have to cook this just a little more. Now you might say, hey, that meat's going to get real dry. Well, don't worry about that. We're going to take care of the dry part just as soon as we're finished. Although I've noticed the liquid in the bottom of this pan is a little low. It'll only barely cover my fork. So what I'm going to do is add a little liquid to this, and this is hot water. Okay, make sure that you use hot water, especially if you're cooking in glassware. Because if you do not, and you're cooking with glassware like this, you can easily crack these guys. Okay, so there we go. I've added about a cup of water, and it goes back in the oven. We're going to keep cooking. It'll just stay in there until it is absolutely, totally ready. How do I know it's ready? It'll slide right off of that fork. Then we're going to take it and shred it. And after it has been cut down and shredded, we will season it, moisturize it with some of the juices it's in, and put it inside of our enchiladas. So it's going to be perfect enchilada meat. Hey, we are here with our ancho chili sauce. Okay, now I have allowed these ancho chilies to soak in here. If you remember, just from the moment ago, you will notice that these have become very large. They've expanded again. They're getting thick and fluffy. That's one of the reasons I slit them, is to allow the water up into the inside. Okay? All of those dried, ugly little chilies, and I dare not lift them by the stem because they want to just pull right out, are getting there. I still have some dark spots on it that still look dried, and I'm going to wait until those are fully hydrated. So that's really the only thing I'm waiting on at this point, is just to finish these things out, and then we're going to put these through the food mill. That'll be our next step. So as you can see, this has been in here for about an hour now, and we're up to just to the point where they're now starting to get soft enough to put into a mill. That won't happen until they're completely hydrated though. And at that point we'll get into the next step, and that will be our next frame. I'm working my garlic down right now, and everybody seems to have a different way of removing the paper from the outside of the garlic clove. I thought I would show you mine. Mine is just a simple technique. You grasp the clove firmly. Not tight enough so that if you twist it'll break the part inside, but just firm enough that your fingers kind of slide over the surface of it, just barely, rocking back and forth, and that just loosens that paper up. And then it wants to come right off, you see. There we go. And I don't have to do that a whole lot. There we are. I think I have another one. So, anyway, that's the way I like to remove that, and if that works for you, give it a try. If it works for you, well, you got a great new method of removing the paper from the outside of those irritating little cloves. Okay, now that I've shown you how I like to remove the paper on garlic, let's show you a way of producing a nice fine mince on garlic. Now, first thing I want to do when I work my garlic is to remove this scab up here. Nobody wants to see that ugly brown thing in their dish, so go ahead and just remove it. Now, most of the time, not always, a lot of time it'll just stick right to your blade. There. Now, nobody's going to have to put up with that ugly thing. Just lost one right there. Good. Now, this technique of mincing requires that you have a blade where the curvature of the blade is flat enough to allow it to lift off of the board when you push down on the handle like this, and for the front back edge to lift up as well. So if you have a knife where this edge is too close to the handle, you won't be able to get that rocking motion. Also, you want to be careful if it's sharpened right here on the end. Some knives have a little square piece right here on the bolster that prevents you from nicking yourself, and some knives like this one are designed to cut all the way through, so be careful of fingers and such when you have that. Now, this technique, very simple. I'm going to do a single clove to start with. Sometimes when you do this, garlic will shoot out a little bit. Don't worry about that. Don't lose any sleep about that. It's just the way it works. Hit it good and hard. Now looky there. We've mashed it. You can turn this board a little. Now, my technique is going to be that I push down and lift. Push down, lift. Push down, lift. Push down, lift. Now, I want to do that really quick. The other thing is when you're holding this, you want to remember, see your thumb here? Don't leave it out. Curl that thumb under. Okay? That away. Now, we're mincing that garlic real nice and pretty. See how easy that was? Okay, I can go back over it again to get a fine mix. Now, normally what I will do when I'm doing this is all of them at once. I just wanted to use a small amount to show you how that's done. This is just a simple mincing technique. Give it a shot. It'll work really well for your garlic. Okay, it has been about an hour and a half now, and our peppers have puffed up nicely. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull them off to the side and just remove that stem. I'm going to take this and just break it into some pieces, quarters, you know, about so large, and toss them right into my food mill. Seeds and all. Don't worry about the seeds. The food mill will remove those for you. The reason I use an extra bowl, you can do this over that, but sometimes it's nice to save some of that water that these have been soaking in. It has a lot of flavor. So I like to save it sometimes and use it either to add to the chili sauce that I do sometimes, and that's if I'm making a lighter chili sauce that is to taste only like chilies, does not have any other flavorants with it. Sometimes I will use, like today I'm going to be using in this one a beef stock. And that's to make it more hearty, because I'm going to be using this particular chili sauce with some beef enchiladas. So it needs to be hearty and beefy. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them in here. I want to mill this. Let me wash my hands just real quick. There we go. These little food mills do not take a lot of work. Thinking, oh, I don't want to have to sit there and crank that. Well, the cranking doesn't really take that long, and it's going to produce a nice chili paste. Now, let's take a look underneath. Look at that. That, pure ancho chili paste. Nice, easy to get, no extra work. All I have to do is just sit there and turn that paddle a little bit, and I'm going to have some nice chili sauce. So, this is the easy way to do it, I think. It's not the Mexican way of doing it. It is not the Texas way of doing it. It's kind of combining some other techniques, but it works really well. So if you want to try this the food mill technique to take care of making chili sauce, give it a shot. After this, we're going to cook this and add our spices to it. I'm just now finishing up my chilies. Now, I haven't been at this for a whole lot of time, maybe 7, possibly 8 minutes. I have finished processing part of the poblanos there. The second half I did here. I was just now about to scrape the rest of the paste off of the bottom of this, that which is not already fallen in the bowl. Now, when you're working with these ancho chilies, they have, you know, the color that's in them is really strong, and it really can stain things, so it's quite difficult to get cleaned off. Now, inside here, all I have are just the poblano skins that are left over. There. And some seeds. And the same thing here, the stems, skins, seeds from the first time I did it. That's all that's left. And inside this bowl, this is where the business hits the road, right there. Look at all that. Beautiful bowl filled with poblano paste. Or ancho paste in this case. I keep forgetting they change the name when you dry them. Anyway, there we go. I am ready to make a lot of chili sauce. It's time for me to get this chili sauce underway. Now I have my chili paste that I produced earlier. I'll use something to pull this out of here. Go. Get it down into my pan. Now what I have here would be, I would say, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3 cups of chili paste is what those 10 little dried up chilies produced for me. Now the thing about this chili paste that you really need to know, this stuff is like super absorptive. It will just keep taking in liquid and keep taking it in and keep taking it in. So thinning it can be a problem unless you have enough material. Now I have here 4 cups of beef broth. And I decided to use beef broth in this because I'm doing this for some beef enchiladas. Now if I was doing chicken enchiladas, this would be chicken broth. If I was doing pork enchiladas, it would probably be a vegetable broth, chicken broth, or I might just use the water that I soaked these in. And that water is filled with flavor. It'll leave the sauce with a much more ancho flavor. This way it's going to have a little more robust flavor to it, and that's exactly what I want for this particular dish. So I'm going to go ahead and start by adding in some of this water. I'm going to need to take a whisk and work that in real nice. Good job. And when I cook this, it's going to thicken up. Very simple. Now, something else I'm going to want to cook into it is some garlic that I have minced earlier. That was about 4 small cloves. Okay, most of that out of there. There we go. I'm going to add a little more of that beef broth. And I'm just now going to kick the heat onto it. Okay. out of the way and bring that pan up gently. Now, as that thickens, the flavors are going to come out of it real well. I'm going to add to it some cumin. This is a ground cumin. Okay, and I'm putting in there about a half a teaspoon. And here I've got some oregano. I want about a tablespoon of oregano. Alright. Then the other thing. Let me tell you something about ancho chili sauce. This stuff has a tendency to be a bit flat in flavor. So what we're going to have to do is add some acid to it. Now, you can add acid to this in different ways. You can put some wine in it. Here's some salt. See there. The sodium level up there. You can add lime juice to it. You could add lemon juice to it. Each one of these is going to give it its own unique flair. If you wanted this to be a somewhat fruity dish, add some pineapple or orange or something like that, mango maybe, and it'll give it a real fruity side to it. This time I'm going to use what's commonly used in tamale sauces, which is just a little bit of tomato sauce. Something very simple as that. Isn't that neat? Go. I'm going to use that same spatula I used earlier. So, get that mixed in. Now you're really not going to taste that tomato so much. The tomato flavor is going to hide in the background of this. But the acid from it is definitely going to enhance the chili flavor. Definitely make sure you get plenty of acid in this dish, otherwise, like I said, it'll land flat. Taste it as you're cooking. You're going to notice whether it's going to need a little of this or a little of that. Then you can add and change it up as you need. Okay? This needs to simmer for a little while. I'm going to let it simmer for about 30, maybe 40 minutes. Okay? There we have it. Ancho chili sauce. Okay, let's take a look at our beef for our tamales. See if it's done yet. Pull this little guy out of here. Go. Oh boy, fork slipped in there so easily, and it lifted, and I know why it lifted. It was because it is just so soft. Damn, it's become very light. But see how it's shredding easily? And this is exactly what I need, that ability there. I can shred this down very easily, and we're going to have a wonderful filling for our enchiladas. So we're going to show you that next. Okay, I've transferred that tiny little roast to a cutting board. Be careful when working these. It's hot, just fresh out of the oven. So, very gently I'm going to make some nice thin slices, about 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 inch thick. Very nice. I'm just going to make that last cut. It's beautiful. This stuff is just, like I said, it's falling apart tender. See that? That's just literally flaking. So it's not going to take a lot of work. All I really need to do now is just cut it down. Now, there's a lot of Texas barbecue shops you go to, and they're going to sit there and process that beef down for you the exact same way for those chopped beef sandwiches. Yeah. And that's exactly what this is going to taste like. And that's exactly what I want. I just want to make sure there's no real big chunks up inside of any of the tamales. I want it to be smaller pieces. And the important thing also is that dark skin on the outside. One of the reasons you want to do this is you want to get the flavor from that caramelization incorporated all the way through that meat. That's an important step. came right apart on us. Okay, I've got nice shredded beef to put up inside of those. I'm going to put this in a bowl now and start flavoring it. Okay, go. Wonderful. Okay. This wonderful shredded beef is dry in texture at the moment, and that's not a problem. That's anticipated. What I'm going to do now, get on a mitt. I'm going to take some of those juices that it cooked in. I'm going to pour in some of that. I'm going to work that meat until it's nice and moist. And a little bit, I'm going to add an extra flavor to this. We're going to add in some of the sauce that we've been making for the top of the enchiladas. We're going to put just a little bit of this, put a little bit of it in this to bring out some flavors, some keynote flavors in these meats. Now, this is also going to need a little bit of salt in it, even though it's cooked with salt, just to finish it off. And I think I want a little bit more of the moisture. Drop in the rest there. That was maybe a cup, 3/4 of a cup to a cup of liquid that was left the roast was cooking in. And it has taken every bit of it in. It's looking really nice now. This is a good beef filling, good natural beef, and a wonderful smoky flavor to it. Okay? So, there's how we get it started on our filling for our enchiladas. I have now simmered this sauce. It has been simmering for about 20 minutes. I'm going to take a little of that sauce and I'm going to incorporate it right here into our meat. And about 2 mixing spoons worth there. There we go. Wonderful. That helps that beef to kind of stick together, form a nice mixture that will work well in the middle of my enchilada. Good. Now I've got my enchilada mixture. I have my topping for my enchiladas. Over this sauce we'll be putting cheese and onions before we bake it in the oven. I'm going to bake that at 325 degrees. We're ready to assemble our tamales and put them in a dish to be baked. Now, I first want to line my dish with a little bit of olive oil, and that way it gives it a nice coating so nothing will stick when I'm ready to pull those out of there. It'll save me a lot of trouble. Make sure that gets coated up onto the sides a little bit because the tamales are going to be not tamales, but enchiladas. I keep saying tamales. I must have tamales on the brain. My enchiladas will not be making contact with the sides here. Or if they do, then they're going to be well coated. Now, to assemble these little guys, I have gone ahead and preheated my tortillas. Now you're going to want to preheat these things good and hot, otherwise they're going to split on you. And if they do, and they're splitting regularly, then that means that maybe you have not heated them enough. They need to be steamed a little bit longer. These, I just placed them in the dish and microwaved them. I'm going to sit here and roll each of these up, line this dish with it. This looks wonderful, doesn't it? This beef has a wonderful smoky flavor to it, and that was from the liquid smoke that we used before roasting it. And it's going to give us a wonderful flavor in the long run. It's really going to be noticeable. It's going to be something that stands out. Not to mention how it will work with our sauce. So anyway, there's how you make those. You just simply roll them up, line your dish with them, leave about 1/8 of an inch in between them. That way the sauce can run down in between them as well as the cheese, and they're also easier to scoop out when you're finished. We are on the final phase of assembling these. So, let's take our ancho sauce that we made earlier, I'm going to simply spoon that up over these wonderful enchiladas that we've produced. This is going to be just absolutely divine. I like doing enchiladas, and if you like doing enchiladas, this is the best way to do your sauce. It's going to be a little more authentic this way. I did enough of this sauce that I'm going to have plenty left over for a couple of other projects that I'm working on. I don't want to over smother those, just enough to give them a good coating. Now, earlier I pre-shredded some extra sharp cheddar cheese. This does really well with Monterey Jack, a combination of Monterey Jack and cheddar, just plain cheddar. This time I wanted a really sharp bite to the cheese on top of these to work with the heaviness of the beef and the stronger flavored sauce that I made this time. So I went with just this. You could use a Mexican cheese. There's a lot of different choices on the south of the border cheeses. They all work really neat for this. Well, no, but most of queso fresco kind of thing would be really super neat. So now that I have this all coated off with cheese, that looks just wonderful. And that right there was just a little under 8 ounces of cheese. I would say it was about 6 ounces. Put some onions up on there. Isn't that nice? Now I cut up enough of this onion so that after I've baked this, if I want to put some fresh onion on afterwards that's not been cooked, it makes a nice sharp edge to finish off enchiladas. So let's give this a bake, and we want to bake it just long enough to melt that cheese down real good and to soften the onions just slightly, and that is all it really takes. It'll be finished after that. This is 325. And it will not take us long. I'm going to guess in that about 15 to 25 minutes. I tell you what, the fumes, the smell, the odor, whatever you want to call it, what's coming up from this dish is just absolutely heavenly. Sure, get that out of my way. If I can get this out of here in one piece without making too much of a mess with it. I'll spill a little of it. Fresh baked enchiladas. I made a bit of a mess with them, but life goes on. Give this a try. You're going to enjoy it. These are beef enchiladas. There's a sauce that goes along with this, the Diablo sauce, or what would it be more appropriate to call it, a ancho sauce. So enjoy good enchiladas. I'm sure you're going to have a real good eating with this. Look at that little guy.